So raise your hand if you've ever been on Zillow or another online website looking for homes in an area you don't currently live in, right? So an unfamiliar place, you check out properties, and the first thing you're gonna notice is the address. You see the street number of the street, the postal city, the state, and the zip code. Well, if you're doing that, looking at homes in the Pittsburgh area, you're going to run into a lot of confusion. So in today's video, I wanna clear up some of that confusion and identify the most common mistakes that buyers make when moving to the Pittsburgh area. So this video is going to be a lot of fun to make. It's based on my personal experience with working with so many buyers that have moved from out of the area. And stick around to the end and make sure you see that #1 mistake so you don't have to do the same thing. My name is Mark McClinchie. I'm a full-time real estate agent serving the entire Pittsburgh area. My business is built on helping people make a relocation to the Pittsburgh region. I have hundreds of videos on my YouTube channel, making sure that people are familiar with the neighborhoods, the school districts, and the lifestyles and amenities they can expect when moving to the Pittsburgh area. I hope you'll find these videos helpful. So let's get on with today's video, identifying the 6 most common mistakes that I see when buyers are moving to the Pittsburgh region. So you're scrolling online, looking at homes for sale, and of course you see the street address, the postal city, the state, and the zip code. And if you're not familiar with how Pittsburgh is organized, too often you're going to assume that that postal city will tell you exactly where the property is located. So for example, if you see 123 Main Street at Pittsburgh, PA, 15123, something like that, you might assume that, oh, this property must be in Pittsburgh. Well, not really. It's probably not in the city of Pittsburgh, but it might have a Pittsburgh postal city, which covers a large portion of Allegheny County, both the North Hills and the South Hills and the eastern suburbs. There's a lot of areas beyond the city of Pittsburgh that actually use a Pittsburgh mailing address. Now, I don't know exactly why the post office chooses to make it like that, but I'll get to some of those reasons in just a minute. Beyond the confusion with Pittsburgh, which has such small city limits, and again, the areas around the city of Pittsburgh are often have postal cities of Pittsburgh. 2 others come to mind pretty frequently when I'm working with clients is they'll see an address for Coraopolis or they'll see an address for McKees Rocks. Now, both Coraopolis and McKees Rocks happen to be close to each other. They're northwest of downtown up the Ohio River. And Coraopolis is a super small town and it has its own municipality of Coraopolis. McKees Rocks, also a small little town in its own independent municipality. However, way beyond those borders of McKees Rocks and Coraopolis, primarily Moon Township, most properties within Moon Township are also going to have a Coraopolis postal city, which is going to confuse people because you're going to see that property and you're going to say, wow, this is in Coraopolis, but it's not in Coraopolis, it just happens to have a postal city of Coraopolis. Another interesting phenomenon in the Pittsburgh region is we have census designated places. So these are neither municipalities, they're just general areas that the census uses to take population. So they kind of have a border. Most people aren't exactly sure where that border is driving around, but you have an area like Wexford, you have an area like Gibsonia, or you have an area like Imperial. And so these are often postal cities that you'll see. You'll see a Wexford mailing address, but Wexford is going to cover areas in Franklin Park. It's going to cover areas in Pine Township. Same with Gibsonia. Gibsonia is going to cover multiple municipalities. Another area of confusion comes from zip codes. So a popular way to filter for properties is you put in a zip code. So I can think of something that works really well is the area of Bethel Park. So if you're looking for Bethel Park, you would put in the zip code 15102 and you'll pull up all the properties that are for sale for 15102, and all of them are going to be in Bethel Park Borough, and all of them will be part of the Bethel Park School District. Similarly with Upper St. Clair, you put in 15241 and you're going to get all of Upper St. Clair, but you will get a postal city that says Pittsburgh, so go figure on that one. Mount Lebanon, for example, has 4 different zip codes. It's one municipality, but 15228 will take up all of Mount Lebanon. All of it will be included in Mount Lebanon, but you also have 15243, you have 15216, and you even have a tiny sliver of 15234. So searching by zip code is not a great way to search for properties in the Pittsburgh area. So what is the solution to all of this confusion around postal cities and municipalities? Well, in my opinion, because our real estate market is so driven by school districts, is you want to scroll down in that listing and figure out what school district it's in. You know, pull up a map of Allegheny County. There's 43 school districts districts, and you'll see, oh, okay, so regardless of what municipality you're in or what postal city it might be in, oh, I'm in the Moon Area School District, or this property is in the Montour School District. And so if you work with me, I can speak at length on just about every single school district in the region as being a former principal in the area. Whether you have kids or not, whether you are a retiree and maybe school districts aren't that important, but real estate obviously is driven a lot by school districts, and in the Pittsburgh area, we have a lot of them, and I'll get to that in one of my other common mistakes later in this video. So let's talk about another mistake that people make when looking at properties online. If I had to pick the one topic that probably causes the most confusion, it probably is property taxes. One, people are coming from areas that have a lot lower property taxes, and they have different ways of funding schools and government services. But in Pennsylvania, we use property taxes as our primary source of revenue for our school districts. So when it comes to the three entities that collect property taxes, you have the local municipality, then you have the school district collecting taxes, and that's a pretty big one. That's the bulk of your property taxes. And then you have the county that you're located in, and it will collect property taxes. So those three entities combined give you your total property tax liability, and you can add those together and figure out what the tax rate is and what your annual taxes are going to be to all three of those entities. So the next part of understanding property taxes is making sure you know the actual tax rate for that particular area where that property is located. Again, there's going to be three entities. They'll all have a different tax rate, but when you add them all together, that's essentially your overall tax rate. And it's probably easier to understand the effective tax rate. So if you were to buy a $300,000 house, some of the areas in the Pittsburgh area have an effective tax rate of around 1%. You could expect on a $300,000 house that taxes are going to be around $3,000 a year, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, depending on where the location is and what the tax rate is. There's also places where the tax rates are really high. And so those have effective tax rates of 2%, sometimes even 2.5%. So on that same $300,000 property, in some areas, you might be paying closer to $6,000 a year, an effective 2% tax rate. And I can give you a list of all the municipalities and school districts and counties and what those tax rates are. Because just looking at the number of saying, oh, wow, those taxes are X dollars per year, those are high, those are low, that's not really the whole picture. You want to know what is the rate being charged in those places, because then it comes to number three. The final part of understanding taxes, property taxes, is knowing the assessed value. So the assessed value is probably the most complicated part of this entire discussion. Most places around the country reassess every year, every single home. It changes a little bit every year. Well, in Pennsylvania, we have a very different system, very confusing system, very frustrating system, that basically the counties are charged with reassessing the properties countywide at whatever their discretion is. Allegheny County, where probably most of you are considering a move if you're moving to the Pittsburgh region, and you're looking at a base year, that's what we call it. The last time that every single house was reassessed was in 2012. So this is 14 years ago that every house, every property within Allegheny County was reassessed, given its proper assessed value. And so therefore, when you were in 2012, you figured out the tax rate and you multiplied it by the full assessed value. And that assessed value was also the market value. Those two things were the same. But every year after 2012, you're getting a little further away from 2012, and there's no way a property in 2026 is worth the same as it was in 2012. So right now in 2026, the common level ratio, the factor, the multiplier they use to take, well, what's the house currently worth? And this is easy when you're looking to buy a house, when you look at the purchase price or the asking price, and you could assume, okay, that $300,000 house, if I were to buy that right now, would I pay taxes on the entire $300,000? No, because in Allegheny County, we have to go back to 2012 to figure out what it was worth then. And the common level ratio for 2026 is 50.14%. Let's just call it 50%. So a $300,000 house should be assessed at $150,000. So you're going to take that $150,000, multiply that by the tax rate, and that's what your taxes should be. I have a solution for this mistake, and I hand all of my clients this. I give them a spreadsheet that I made, give them a copy, and that it is a calculator that the only thing you have to plug into this calculator is the purchase price. So if you're thinking about buying a $300,000 house, you just, at the top of my little calculator, you put in $300,000, and then you scroll down and you're going to see all all of the different municipalities and school districts in different counties. So tons of them are all on the same spreadsheet, and you will see what that property taxes should be once the tax collector catches up and reassesses, because maybe currently it's assessed too high. More than likely it's going to be fixed, particularly if it's assessed too low. I hope that clears things up. I hope you found that helpful. If you still have questions, leave it in the comments. I'd be glad to talk about property taxes. But at the end of the day, most people moving here are okay with the services. They're not upset about that. And if they were, they wouldn't move here. But they do need to know how to calculate it correctly so they can plan appropriately of what to expect will happen with those property taxes. Mistake number 4 is a big one, and it's what led to mistake number 6 and mistake number 5, is that people underestimate the complexity of the Pittsburgh real estate market. They think it's just kind of simple. They think it's not a big area, and they kind of think, oh, well, that's in Butler County, so that must all be similar, or that's in Allegheny County. And they kind of make broad assumptions with broad brushstrokes of what it's like to sort of live in certain areas. And so they really don't take into account the fragmented element of the Pittsburgh market. We're super fragmented. We are an area that is essentially, I keep saying that we have 5 counties. We probably have 7 counties if you throw in Armstrong and Fayette, but you've got Butler, Beaver, Washington, Westmoreland, Allegheny County, and then you could maybe throw in Armstrong and Fayette as well. Now, some of those are a little more rural on the fringes, but that's essentially the Pittsburgh metro area. And in those 7 counties, you have well over 100 school districts. It wasn't that long ago that Pennsylvania had over 3,000 school districts. There was a lot of consolidation done in the 1960s and 70s. And today, in the state of Pennsylvania, there are 501 school districts, which is a lot. I mean, Pennsylvania, yeah, it's a big area, but 500 school districts, that's a ton. So in Allegheny County alone, there are 43 school districts. You also have over 500 municipalities. So the Pittsburgh region loves neighborhoods. They love small communities. These are tight-knit communities that go back a long, long time, and nobody wants to give that up. People don't like merging and acquisitions. They stick to their own. And that becomes really challenging, and that's partially why our property taxes are so high, because we have a lot of duplication of things. So I've presented the complexity and how fragmented the Pittsburgh region is. So how do you solve that problem? Well, watch more videos of Mark Knows Pittsburgh, because I have tons of school district videos and neighborhood videos and talking about what different amenities and lifestyle choices you can make throughout the Pittsburgh region. Another option, if you go down to the description of this video, you will find a link to a free relocation guide. Click on that link, you'll get immediate access. This relocation guide is chock full of information about the region, tells you all about the amenities, and at the back of the guide, it gives you a breakdown community by community of a deep dive into information about the school district, information about the population, what it's like to live in that area. So it goes community by community. That relocation guide can be essential to help you with your research and learning more about how complex and fragmented the Pittsburgh region can be. Let's switch gears and talk about another common mistake I see buyers making when they're planning a move to the Pittsburgh area. And that mistake is working with a national lender. So I get it. You do your banking online, you pay your bills online, you do shopping online. A big part of our life is done online because it's convenient and easy. And so when it comes to getting a mortgage, a lot of people buying a home turn to large national online vendors. In my experience, I've had a lot of clients that have tried to use them and they've deeply regretted it. And one of the main reasons is they did not feel they got any kind of customer service. They barely knew the name of their loan officer because they were always sent to different people. And then they had to call a 1-800 number to try to get through. And the communication was really difficult, you know, when they had questions and they needed things done very quickly, particularly when you're making an offer in a hot market. You don't have time to wait on Friday night for an answer on Monday morning. The other big mistake that I see national lenders making is they're not in touch with the nuances of the Pittsburgh market, which I covered earlier in the video. They don't understand that there are tons of different tax rates depending on the municipality. We've got hundreds of municipalities, we've got hundreds of school districts. They all charge different tax rates, so they're not always getting those right tax rates. They very often miss the transfer tax rate as well. So in some of our areas, it's a 2% transfer tax shared equally by buyer and seller in most cases, but there's a number of municipalities where it's not 2%, and it's actually higher than that. And so a lot of national lenders don't do a great job of quoting accurate information so that you as a buyer can be prepared to know as you're making one of the largest purchases of your life to get accurate information. So I have a solution. The solution is to work with a local mortgage broker, an expert like Justin Remp. Justin Remp has been working with my clients since I entered the business in 2018. Phenomenal rates, some of the best rates that I've seen, super competitive. Justin will sit down, set up a consultation with you, really learn about what your needs are, what your financial position is, and he will tailor make a strategy and present different products and different options for you so you get exactly the right financing package that's gonna work for you. And most importantly, what you get when you're working with Justin Remp is you also get his team member, Logan Swan. Both Logan and Justin are incredibly responsive. The customer service is phenomenal, and you definitely wanna work with someone like Justin Remp in the Pittsburgh area who's an expert and will handle your mortgage services with tremendous expertise and professionalism. The number 2 mistake that I see buyers make is they don't fully research the option of buying a home or renting a home. Too often they go all in 100%. They're committed to saying, I'm buying a home no matter what, and they never consider renting as an option, or vice versa. But you want to work with a real estate agent that can map those options out for you. Talk about the pros and cons of buying and renting. Relocating to a new city is extremely complicated, stressful, and certainly exciting. And there is not a solution that is one size fits all. If you're thinking about buying, that might be a great reason. Buying in some cases might make the most sense. You're able to establish equity sooner. You're able to lock in today's prices rather than wait another year or more, and prices continually rise every month. We're seeing higher and higher prices. So if you delay that decision, you might have to pay more later on. If you're waiting for the right interest rate, for example, and things like that. Buying makes sense if you want that sense of permanence. You want to get rooted. You don't want to uproot your family in moving twice. So you want to kind of get to know a community and start meeting people, and your kids establish friendships and they start going to school. And you can do that when you're buying as opposed to renting, because if you're renting, then you might have to uproot and move again. One thing that when you're thinking about buying and it makes sense, it's because the rental market has really low inventory, particularly in the suburbs, and it's typically of poor quality. So your options of renting, might not be that great. So those are some of the reasons why buying might make sense. So let me run through some of the reasons why renting could be a great option for some people. Let's say you have a home to sell where you currently live out of state. That's going to be a complicated process to try and buy and sell at the same time. It certainly can be done, but if you want to avoid the stress and the complexity of trying to manage both transactions, plus the market on the buying side when you're using a home sale contingency, can be a challenge. Not impossible, but can be a challenge. So by renting first, you can solve that problem by selling your home in your current location. Renting could be an option where if you're moving to the Pittsburgh region and you haven't found a job yet, or maybe, between you and your partner, one person works from home and one person wants to get a job, in person, and you're not sure where that's going to be. So renting makes sense. So that way you're not committed to a certain area of the city. So if you buy a home in the North Hills and you get a job in the South Hills, that's going to be a tough commute. So if you have job prospects that you're going to be doing later once you arrive, renting might make sense in that situation. Another way that renting makes sense for people is they want to test drive neighborhoods. They want to really experience it. You can learn a lot from videos. You can learn a lot from working with me, but some people want more assurance. They actually want to live in it. They want to, like I said, test drive it. They want to live there for a couple months, get a feel for the neighborhood, figure out whether that's right for them. So that might make a lot of sense for some people. So when it comes to buying or renting, it's a super complex issue. And so the solution is to contact me, call, text, email, set up a consultation, and let's make sure we have that conversation. I'm not going to push you to buy a home. I want to push you to the solution and the path that makes the most sense for you, the one that's the best fit for you. And you can kind of have a plan A and a plan B. That doesn't mean that after that consultation, we're sticking to one plan or the other. We can go down both paths. I definitely have a lot of clients that do that. They play it by ear. Well, let's start going down both of these. Let's explore both renting and buying and figure out as we get closer which one's going to make the most sense. So you don't have to necessarily make the decision right away. You can explore both options, and I'd be glad to help you do that. Okay, so you've made it this far in the video, and you really should have seen this one coming. The number one mistake that buyers make moving to the Pittsburgh area is they hire the wrong agent. You've got to hire the right agent, so let me help you do that. When you are considering hiring an agent to help you, you want to ask these questions. Do they know inside and out the entire 5-county region of the Pittsburgh area? Can they speak with authority and credibility about each and every school district in the Pittsburgh metro area? Do they have a proven system to help identify the neighborhoods that are going to be the best match for your budget and lifestyle and needs? Are they willing to work with you on a daily basis for the next 9 to 12 months before your buying window starts? Are they going to work with you directly, or will they pass you off to another member of their team? Do they know the commute patterns and traffic patterns of every neighborhood in the region to best advise you on which neighborhoods would be a good fit for you? Do they have the relationships and the referral partners to provide you with the contractors you're going to need to do inspections and to make repairs or renovations on your home? And since you're from out of town, you're going to need a lot of services unrelated to your property. And so will you work with an agent that has that knowledge and that ability to give you the necessary referrals to help your transition go smoothly? Do they have a proven system to negotiate the best deal possible and save you every penny? Does that same system win bidding wars and give you the most protection possible? If the answer is no to any of the above questions, well, this is the guy that can answer yes to every single one of those. So please reach out, just like the hundreds of clients that I've had before you. Let's set up a consultation so I can make your relocation to the Pittsburgh area as seamless and as stress-free as possible. I look forward to hearing from you and helping you find your place in the Pittsburgh region. Thanks for watching, and welcome to Pittsburgh.